In my last video about marshmallows, I talked about the staggering amount of consumer debt we had here in the United States. Coupled with the lack of financial education in our school system and most of American citizens having little to no retirement saving at all, it's no wonder that most of us feel pretty bleak about the financial future. Thankfully, if you're trying to change your relationship with money, now's the perfect time because there's so many resources and gurus online that you can learn from. And of everyone that does preach financial independence, no one is probably more famous than David Ramsey. For those who don't know, more than 25 years ago, Dave Ramsey fought his way back from bankruptcy and $1 million in debt. Today, he's a businessman who helps people take control of their financial future with his Financial Peace University and is also the radio host of the Dave Ramsey Show. Now in this video, I'm going to go over his 7 baby steps he lays out for people to get out of debt and take control of their financial future. Now let's get started with step number 1. Set aside $1,000 for your starter emergency fund. Emergencies are going to happen, whether it's going to be a household problem like a broken pipe or a medical bill. You want to make sure that you have an emergency fund set aside so it doesn't allow you to go back into debt. When a lot of people living paycheck to paycheck and not being able to afford $500 without going into credit card debt or any kind of debt, by setting aside $1,000 to begin with in your emergency fund, it's going to help alleviate that stress that might come in case of any emergencies. However, the key thing to remember is that the amount that you set aside for your emergency fund is, like its name says, is for emergencies only. So in order for you not to get tempted, if you're afraid of that, make sure you set it aside into a different bank account or into a different account. Whatever you do, make it hard for you to try to get that money so it gets rid of that temptation. Step number 2 is pay off all debt using the debt snowball method. Now this step, you're probably going to do what most of us dread doing. You're going to write down each and every amount of debt that you own, and you're going to list it in the order from the smallest to the largest balance. Now the debt snowball method is when you pay off the debt starting from the smallest amount to the largest amount, regardless of the interest rates. Pay the minimum on all the other balances you should have, but for the one with the smallest balance, make sure you tackle that head on so you can get rid of that smallest debt as soon as possible. And after you pay off the smallest, then you move on to the next one. Pay the minimum for everything else, then the smallest one until you finally reach your end goal of paying off all your debt. And you might be asking yourself, why don't I just pay off the one with the highest interest rate? Won't that save me overall in the long run? And the answer is yes. But you do have to understand that paying off these large amounts of balances that most people will have is going to be an emotional journey. And by paying off the smallest one first, you're going to get the first psychological win, and this will keep you motivated. Now these two methods are called a debt snowball and a debt avalanche method. I'm going to do a video comparing and contrasting these two methods. So if that's what interests you, make sure you subscribe below after you finish watching this video. Now step 3 is going to expand on step 1, and it's going to mean putting aside 3 to 6 months worth of expenses in your emergency fund. Of course, depending on your situation, it might be a bit more or a bit less, but the key point of the emergency fund is going to make sure that, for example, if you lose your job, you're not going to have to go back into that because you're not able to cover for your basic needs. These 3 to 6 months is going to be able to cover your basic needs for you and your family while you look ahead for other jobs and things like that. Once again, I'm going to have to remind you that this amount is going to be for emergencies only. So like I mentioned in step number 1, set this aside in a different bank. A bank that you won't be able to get into as easily because you don't want to be tempted with this larger amount of money. Another key tip is, because you don't want to lose your balance to inflation about 2% every year, see if you can move this emergency fund into a high interest savings account. I believe Ally or Marcus by Goldman Sachs, they offer a bit over 2%. Now by keeping this amount there, you will at least earn interest that will keep up with inflation. Step number 4 is to invest 15% of your household income for your retirement. I don't know about you, but I sure don't want to work when I'm 50 or 60 years old. So by investing and setting aside this amount, 15%, that's what Dave Ramsey recommends, is going to help you build your financial foundation that you will need to retire in peace. If you work for a company that offers 401k match, definitely take advantage of that because that's essentially free money and you don't want to miss out on free money. After that, try to max out your Roth IRA. Currently in 2019, the maximum I believe is $6,000, but if you're at a certain age, I believe they bump it up to $7,000. What's great about the Roth IRA is that the money you put in is taxed, but after years down the line, when you take out the money, that money that you put in plus the interest it accumulates is completely tax-free. Now, of course, this 15% is too high for you right now. That doesn't matter. Start with what you can, whether it be 1% or 5% to begin with. The goal is to invest, because the earlier you start investing, the larger compound interest is going to build your wealth more and more. But the end goal is to get up to that 15% or 20%. Of course, this all depends on your situation. Google compound interest calculator and try to figure out how much you think you'll need when you retire. By doing this calculation, you'll be way ahead with everyone else, because most people don't even know the amount that they'll need for retirement. Experts say about $1 million, but of course it depends on your situation. So definitely look this up so you have a base idea of what you need, so you can gauge how much amount you need to invest of your household income. Step number 5 is to save for your children's college fund. Unfortunately, in this day and age, it seems like every kind of job does require a bachelor's degree, and with university costs going sky high every year, it's going to be smart for you to set aside the money to invest in your children's college education. You can either look into the education savings fund or the 529 savings plan. Both of them do have their tax advantages but also their limitation, so as always, make sure you compare both of them and try to see which one will work best for yourself and your family. By doing this step, your children are going to thank you, because they're not going to graduate and start working to pay off their student loans. They're going to be able to work and start building up their retirement and also their financial foundation as well. We're going to help them not become like those millions of students who graduate colleges with an average student loan of $30,000. Now, step number 6 is to pay off your home early. Now, this step is where you tackle the largest debt that most of us will have, our mortgages. Paying off your home earlier is going to save you thousands, maybe tens of thousands of dollars on interest. For example, if you're on a 30-year mortgage, try to see if you can switch it down to a 15-year mortgage. Even though the monthly amount might be a bit higher, you're going to be able to pay it off much sooner, and in the end, save you and your family on interest that you'll have paid on your mortgages to begin with. And once this step is done, you can finally say that you have your own home and that you don't have to worry about the bank repossessing it or anything like that. This step, I believe, will be the biggest achievement of your financial career. And the final step, number 7, is to build wealth and to give. Typically, this is the final step that we all envision that we could be at right now. However, step number 1 to 6 must happen first before you can grow your wealth and do whatever you want. It's going to take a lot of self-discipline and time, but if you stick with step number 1 to 6, you can definitely start having fun with this step number 7, because you can have all these excess monies that you can do with whatever you want. You can travel the world, you can save for your children's, your grandchildren, and maybe even your great-grandchildren. You can donate to the charities that you want and support the people that you know and who trust you in return. However, like I mentioned, step number 1 through 6 must happen first. Most people daydream about step number 7, but by taking your time and sticking to Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps, you will eventually get here to step number 7, where you're going to be able to grow all the wealth that you want and to contribute and leave a legacy for your children also in society as well. And there you have it. This is basically Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps. If you have found this video helpful, don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe for more videos such as this, and leave a comment below if you have heard of Dave Ramsey and the 7 baby steps. But that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next video. Alright guys, bye!